Everybody can hear me? Okay. Well, welcome to Greg Braden's Choice Point 2012. We're not going to talk about death and destruction and the world flipping over. So if that's what you come to hear, then this is not the lecture. But let me tell you about Greg. Greg Braden is a scientist, internationally renowned as a pioneer in bridging science and spirituality. He was a computer geologist for the Phillips Petroleum during 1970s energy crisis. He was a senior computer systems designer for the Marguerite defense systems during the Cold War. Head of technical operations for Cisco Systems and managed development of global support team for the reliability of today's internet. He's a powerful man. But most important, for over 25 years, he searched the high mountains of top monasteries of Tibet and other spiritual places around the world, looking for forgotten texts to uncover timeless secrets. And he realized that the key to our future lies in the wisdom from our past. What I'd like to do now is a little process called the heart locking process. It was developed by the Heart Institute of Math, and it's very simple and it's very easy, and it's to get us all nice, relaxed. So if you would just relax and take everything off your lap just for a minute and just sit with your feet comfortably on the floor. And if you just close your eyes and just take a deep breath in and let it out real slow. Now, shift your attention away from your mind and heart, or head, and focus all of your attention in your heart area. Pretend that you are breathing through the heart for about 10 to 15 seconds. Just feel the air coming and going in your heart. Remember the love or care you have for someone whom is easy to love. Focus on the feelings of appreciation. Someone or something in your life that you feel very positive about. If other thoughts come in, bring your focus back to the area around your heart. Now, if you would gently send that feeling of love, care, and appreciation to yourself and to others. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. How's that feel? Good. Okay, well, I'd ask that you all would hold your questions until I finish, because basically I want to get this information accurately to you. So I'm going to be reading a little presentation, and if we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. The present world age isn't something that's simply going to fade away into the sunset of time that seems to linger somewhere out there in the future. In fact, it is just the opposite. Our world age has an expiration date. It ends at a specific time with a specific event on a day that was marked on a calendar more than 2,000 years ago. There's no secret about that date. The Maya who calculated it also inscribed it in permanent record for future generations. It's etched in the stone monuments that were built to last until the end of time. Using the format of the ancient long count calendar, the system of timekeeping that the Maya developed to track extremely long periods of time, the last day of the present world age is written in a 5-part code. It tells us that our present world age will end with the winter solstice that takes place on December 21st, 2012. It's on this date that the mysterious Maya identified the astonishing astronomical events that will make the end of our age. During this time key, everything from global climate change, patterns of war and peace, and even our spiritual growth will appear to be directly influenced by the planetary changes that are scientifically documented. We need to learn our conditions of our heart so we can actually affect our community with all these changes coming. What I'm going to show you here is what I consider a graphic picture of what Greg is going to be talking about. It's here, right here, is a black hole, and it's the center of our Milky Way. They recently discovered inside this black hole where everything came from, where there is a very, very bright star, and they've actually named it now, but right now, this is the black hole. Our galaxy, let's say it's over here. This is our little galaxy. We got our little sun here and our Earth and all of the little planets all going around. This is our little universe. And this universe is on an elliptical orbit around the center of the Milky Way. When 2012 comes around, we are going to be basically, our universe is going to be basically here, which is going to be directly in line. Our equator on our Earth is going to be directly in line with the equator of the black hole, the center of the Milky Way. Therefore, as you can tell, when you've got magnetic pulls, when you're going around this thing, it's going to be much stronger when you're closer than when you're over on the other side of the, and this whole orbit takes about 26,000 years. So that's basically where we are now, is over here somewhere. The very nature of a cycle is that it repeats itself. So every time the end of one of our cycles appears, by definition, it's the beginning of the next. The key here is that to get to the beginning of what's new, the cycles must pass through the end of what already exists. And while this preempting nature of cycles is obvious on a small scale, like the seasons of the year, the phases of the moon, it's not always so obvious when we're talking about cosmic cycles, like solar systems moving through the galaxy. And this is where the message of our Mayan ancestors come in. They recognized the nature of time cycles long before science discovered our journey through the heavens. Their timekeepers preserved what they knew and incorporated it into stories about the universe and life, non-scientific descriptions of creation and destruction, birth and death, beginnings and endings. And many other ancient civilizations also have the same similar records and same similar stories. Let's consider the first fact, that is Einstein's theory of relativity, forever merged our ideas of space and time into a single essence called space-time. The second fact is that the events of everyday life, things like romance and war, peace and planetary orbits, and the stock market fluctuations, and the rise and fall of civilizations and so on, all of these things happen in space-time. The third fact is the thing that happen in space-time follow natural rhythms that become calculated and measured. Think of this as time stuff. It's a very unusual way of looking at time, but this means we can now have reasons and the tools to think of time in a powerful new way. Rather than considering the minutes of days as simply as nature's way of keeping everything from happening all at once, as pioneer physicist John Wheeler once stated, fractal time demonstrates that we can now think of time as a kind of a code that connects the past with the future. And just as any other code can be cracked and read, the message of the ancient Mayan calendar can be deciphered and read just like the pages of a book. For some people, this perspective of time is a very strange way of thinking, but for others, it makes perfect sense. The idea is fascinating. The implications are deep and mysterious and make perfect sense. While they challenge much of the way we've been taught to think of the universe, we also find ourselves profoundly drawn into the possibilities. We want to know more. We find ourselves wanting to apply this new understanding of time to the real world, to make sense of everything, from the tragedies of life to the mysteries of the future. And guess what? We can. Although quantum scientists tell us that we can never predict an exact future, what we can predict are the probabilities of the future. And this is precisely what the existence of repeating cycles of time demonstrate. Each time a cycle appears, it repeats the general conditions that make something possible rather than a precise outcome. For example, in the Earth's atmosphere, we can create a perfect environment for a tornado without ever actually forming a tornado. Hey. Time cycles can bring together all of the circumstances to lead to an event in history without that event really occurring again in the present. Just like hurricanes out in the ocean, we know that the exact pattern weather can be happening out in the ocean, the temperature of the water, the way the currents are flowing, and then there doesn't need to be actually a hurricane doesn't need to come into existence. But the situation and the conditions are all there. So this is one of the things that he's saying here. If we can really think of time in the universe in the same way that we think of time stuff that happens in life as events that fill it, then the cycles within time can be measured the same way that we measure stuff that happens. Just the way we can predict the cyclic return of a comet streaking through the universe, suddenly we can also pinpoint the year when the conditions that led to the rise of a civilization or an act of war, or even our personal betrayal will come around again. The beauty of such understanding is that along with the moments in time that are ripe for chaos, we can also pinpoint the moments in our future that are ripe for peace. Because all cycles are based upon natural rhythms, we can use the universal codes that govern everything from the moment of quantum particles to the shape of our galaxy in a formula, and takes the guesswork out of finding the places in time that we've been searching for. Greg came up with a time code calculator, which basically it looks at the conditions that have happened in the past, and it tells us when they are expected to repeat. And not the events themselves, like I've said, but it's for example, like you walk down a street and there's a hole. And the next thing you know, you fall in the hole. So then the next day you walk down the same street, there's the hole, you fall in again. Then the next day you walk down the street, you see the hole and you go around the hole. And then finally, the next day or so, you decide, hey, I'm not going to walk down that street. I still have to get to my destination over there, but I'm just going to take a different street. And it's just like that. It's the conditions that are similar, like the hole, but it's what we do with it. The time code calculator isn't limited only to the major events on a global scale. It works for things that have happened in everyday life as well. From the joys and crises in our personal lives to the war and peace between nations, it appears that the conditions leading to the pivotal moment in life repeat themselves as cycles, large and small, and they all follow the same natural rhythms. To use cycles in our life, we must recognize the patterns, when they begin, how they play out, and how to read the timing. This is precisely what the time code calculator does. And in the back of your handout, I've given you the website, and you can go and play with this thing believe me, it can get fascinating in putting in the dates and finding different patterns in your own life and repeating activities, especially when you know history, because you've got a history that you're looking at. Along with the repeating cycles that makes the condition possible, each cycle also contains choice points. Like I said, we see the hole, we do not have to fall in the hole, we have the choice. Choice points are moments in time when change seems to come easier and be more effective. So while the themes of global war and personal betrayal and peace themselves may be set into a timeline, the outcome for each of these specific themes is not. As in the case with all human experience, it's what we do with our condition presented to us that writes the next chapter in our experience. Time key number 7 summarizes these ideas, saying that the end of the present world age that began on August 11th, 3114 BC, is signaled by the rare alignment of our solar system with the core of the Milky Way on December 21st. And that's the event that will last occurred approximately 26,000 years ago. And when we were over here, 26,000 years ago. No humans that recorded at the time were there. But the fascinating part to me is, the Mayan etched this in stone, and today our computers are calculating this. But these people allegedly didn't have computers, right? So it's just amazing when you sit and think about how they came up with it. Also in Egypt, they've got like huge zodiac and galactical calendars and etched in stones and different monuments. Modern scientists acknowledge that this galactic alignment is happening. So they know this is happening. They could see it in their telescopes and all of their modern equipment. They also acknowledge that the Mayan calendar marks the event. There's no question that one of the great cycles of traditional ancient Mayan calendar comes to completion of its count at that time in 2012. The question most often asked simply is, what does it mean? Well, on one hand, there are those who discount the phenomenon as little more than an interesting oddity and that we're lucky to be seeing it in our lifetime. While others, however, suggest that it's a close to a great cycle and it marks the convergence of a rare cosmic process that implications that range from joyous to frightening. There's a push going on between the Earth and the Moon and the Sun. And what's going on with this is it's creating a wobble. I'm sure you've all heard a little bit about the wobble. It takes the Earth basically 26,000 years to complete a complete cycle of a wobble. So if you can imagine, the Earth down in here is what will get to its exact position in the same wobble that it was 26,000 years ago approximately, and its equator will be exactly straight lined with the equator of the center of the Milky Way. So, and that's an odd and very rare event. It's going to basically happen. And when you think about it, you're not feeling it because we're not wobbling. We're sitting here, and this window of time has been taking place since 1980 through 2016 zone. So we're well into this area over here. And if you think back, and if some of you live long enough, I know y'all are under 20, so, but before 1980, the weather patterns were more stable. They didn't seem like we were having as many tsunamis and earthquakes and hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. And obviously they haven't recorded weather patterns for that long, but for the ones that they have recorded, they definitely all agree that activity has totally increased on the Earth since the 1980s. And like I said, you're not, this at one spot is going to be there, but basically we are in that zone already. And we're feeling it in the Earth our little nice, beautiful blue home. I love my home. And all right, just the way the sun is shining in the northern hemisphere appears lower in the sky during the winter than in the summer, the constellations appear to rise and set at different times and different locations depending upon where we are in our journey. This change has been recognized by civilizations from ancient Egypt and India. Based upon Earth's current speed through the universe, our entire journey through all 12 constellations will take about 25,920 years, which is rounded up to 26,000 years. It's within that period that the time that Earth passes through 5 world ages within one 26,000 year cycle. So each world age lasts approximately 5,125 years. So the bottom line to the idea of procession is that the scenery of the night sky changes as we trace our path through the heavens over these vast period of time. And our knowledge of this journey gives us a greater meaning to what we call the doctrine of world ages, as well as the passage through the zodiac. I know that you all have heard of the zodiac cycles, and you may want to even take and look into them a little bit more, because how they play a role in shaping our future. You know, you can do some more research on that, because the Earth, this big cycle, goes through the cycles of the zodiac, just like each of us, you know, are born in a certain sign under the zodiac, and we have certain characteristics that sign more exhibit than other signs. You know, it's not saying that it's a cookie cut. That if you're a Sagittarius, you're a Sagittarius all the way. Of course, you've got all the other planets influencing it. But the Hindu method, the Veda method of astrology is very, very right on. If you ever get the opportunity to have somebody read your chart under the Vedic system of astrology, you'd be amazed, because the modern astrology is off a little bit on the rising star and where exactly the planets were when we were born, because they didn't take into consideration the shifts of time and the shift of the Earth. I had mine on it. It was like, whoa. So that really is right on. Anyways, every 5,125 years, the natural changes in Earth's position in space and create an astronomical alignment that signals the end of one celestial cycle and the beginning of the next. The ancients called these periods of time between the alignment world ages. The changes in climate and sea level, civilization and life that has been accompanied the shifts in the past have been so great that when they occur, the existing world is sent to end. For clarity, it's not the planet itself that's ending. It's our location in the orbit that triggers the changes. Just as the end of night is a necessarily part for a 24-hour day and makes the day that follows possible, the end of an age is necessary part of a 5,125-year cycle that gives birth to the next age. From this perspective, the great birth that 2012 is facilitating is a spiritual birth. It's humankind's evolutionary leap and response to the galactic and cyclic changes of the Earth orbit. The scientists have done ice core samples, if you've ever seen any of the presentations on television about them, where they take and they send a big tube down into the ice, and they can go down, and they've got them like thousands and thousands of years old, and they can tell by what they see in the ice when it was melted, when it was more watery, what was in the air, whether there was fires happening. They also have sea sediment from the ocean floors, and they study these layers, and so they really know what they can't tell what people were doing or if what civilizations were around at the time, but they do know what Mother Earth was doing. which is something that's really amazing, because at some of these times they can tell you when the Earth was like covered with ice, you know, why the dinosaurs were here when they went, and all that kind of thing. They can tell by those samples. And I'm not here to talk about samples. The Vedic traditions describe an extended time of devotion expressed in action as bhakti that began around 1898 and lasted well beyond the 2012 Mayan date. Beginning at that date, its Kali Yuga was 5,000 years ago, and this places us in about a sub-cycle of an oasis of light and prepares for the next yuga of light to occur. Overall, the Vedic traditions do not see 2012 as the end of the world age. Their systems see it going way on beyond. While the undeniable relationship between cycles of time and the events of our past clearly deserves more study, from the results revealed up until this time, 3 principles have become very clear. Principle number 1 is that the conditions of nature, including human events, do in fact repeat themselves in a cycle. The second is that conditions of one cycle often repeat into the next cycle with a greater magnitude of expression. And the third principle is that it's the return of the previous conditions rather than the events themselves that can be predicted. So from our experiences of marriage and divorce, success and loss, to the cycle of war and peace, it's clear beyond any reasonable doubt that the same pattern can show up in our life time and time again. And when it does, it's not uncommon for the repeating pattern to make itself known as even stronger of a pattern than before. And it's often one that catches our attention. It's just like if you got a lesson in life, you know, certain little things happen in life and you ignore them, and the next thing, something again happens a little bit stronger, and then the next time something happens it's even stronger yet, it really gets your attention. Like let's say you've got you bump your toe, and you go, oh, you know, I should be a little more conscientious. You don't think about it. Next thing you know, you trip down a stair, and you go, oh, boy, you know, I really need to get more aware of what I'm doing. And the next time, all of a sudden, you fall down and break a leg or something, and you get your attention that, you know, I better stop wearing these high heels or something. So I'm sure that you've had lessons in your life that when you've ignored them, they get progressively stronger. And you say, hey, wake up. As we've seen in the previous sections, the time code calculator points to exact dates in history, but without a way to explore what that means. Those dates are just insignificant numbers. To give meaning to the dates of the past, we need a way to look at a different point of view, and a different kind of window. And this is what Greg has done. Greg had, with people throughout the world for 25 years, went around questioning them what they needed and wanted. So he chose 3 categories to do just that. The window that will help us to make sense of the past is a template made of 3 kinds of events: human events, earth events, and celestial events. And these things you can see in the time calculator when you go home and you start to pull it up on the computer. You can put in the dates, and it will pull out another repeating cycle. And then you can take a look at it and say, oh, that happened when I was 12. Now look at that. You know, that did happen when I was 26. You know, it's very similar. And you can predict positive events or negative events, or if you want to call them negative, things that happen in our life with the same type of conditions that were around us, and then how we made our different decisions. You can look into the past using these categories as a cookie cutter of sorts, then compare apples with apples in our investigation in terms of what we can realistically expect in the year 2012. I plugged in and Greg plugged in December 7th, 1941. And the time code calculator popped up with a date in 1980. And there was no real global war in 1980. However, if you remember, in 1980 there was an airliner, a Korean airliner that got shot down. And we were so close to global World War III, that we as citizens don't know how close the countries came to pushing the button. Today, since a lot of knowledge is being released, you know, a lot of the sealed records have been opened. You could tell that, you know, that it became very, very close. You can look this up on the internet too, about how close we did. But the next date that popped up was 9/11, which was a surprise attack on the United States. And the seed events that have these events in cycles happening over again. If any of you have read anything about the Bible Code, or ever heard about the Bible Code, in the Bible Code they've got the same thing. 9/11 was predicted in the Bible Code, and it talks about surprise and attack, you know, on the country. So that's another fascinating topic all on itself, if you ever want to do a little research on the Bible Code. Recent discoveries regarding the way the Earth's magnetic field works suggest that rather than a single field, there are actually multiple fields that merge or couple to create a magnetic shield that protects us from the sun's energy. Anything that creates a disturbance large enough within the Earth itself or within the atmosphere could possibly disturb the balance of that field. In other words, anything packing enough wallop could send us into a tailspin. So there's always a possibility that the scenarios are such that one of great concern are a massive solar flare, a galactic superwave, a physical jolt to the planet itself from an asteroid or meteor, or effects are a near miss of a large planet flying by. There is no reason to expect that any of these events are going to happen, though. I mean, I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not going to say I can't predict the future. However, the fact that the statistical facts of that happening are astronomical. While it's impossible to know for exact certain what 2012 end of the world age has in store for us, we can know with confidence that the facts of what similar cycles and seed points within those cycles have held in the past. Armed with the fact that our time code calculator has provided, we can now build a reasonable picture of what we can expect as we move through 2012 and the days beyond. And we can do so with confidence because of a clear reference date that the Mayans designed on their calendar. The changes of today are just what we would expect for the end of a world age. With these conditions in mind, the rare alignment marked by December 2012 appears to be a cosmic marker that the ancient Mayans and others identified as a time of such great change and cyclic changes here on Earth. But in addition to the physical change of Earth itself, they foretell of the emotional and spiritual changes of the people on Earth that will undergo and to come to terms with the new weather, the land, the ocean, and the climate, and the changes bring. It's that they're talking about the spiritual change within man, how they're seeing mankind help other nations in some of these crises, like the earthquake in Haiti, all the call to help to that, like the thing in Japan with the tsunami. You know, mankind is responding in a loving, spiritual manner. And not that we can go and fix things 100% for these people, but you do see a lot of outpouring of love. Though a number of essays and reports, the experts present a strong case for one single fact. Our civilization cannot sustain the same path of violent competition, ever-expanding economies, continued depletion of resources, and our growing contribution to greenhouse gases. and the climate change that we've traveled for the last 100 years. The combination of so many of these problems compressed into a brief period of time is what Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson calls the bottleneck in time. He defines this as a period of maximum stress on our natural resources and human knowledge. The point that the Journal of Scientific America, September 2005, makes is that while each of these scenarios alone is catastrophic, all of them are happening right now. We need to look at that and what role we are playing in that, and what small steps we can take to start to make our life towards releasing this bottleneck. New discoveries linking physics of heart-based focus with what happens in the world tells us that how we experience the transition appears to be largely up to us. The results of the discoveries are conclusive. The way we feel about our experiences has a direct effect on what we actually experience. The GO satellite is measuring the Earth's magnetic fields, shows a significant spike during 9/11. I got here a couple. The GO satellite basically is the geosignificant operational environmental satellites that we have put up in space to basically keep track of all of our weather. So we know that when hurricanes are coming, we get these beautiful pictures on our televisions about, oh, look at that storm coming and where it's going and what's happening. Well, they found that they measure the Earth's geomagnetic fields, and the planet's magnetic field is sensitive to the effects of emotion based in the collective interactions of humans. So, if you notice, I'm going to pass it around. You can see that at 9 o'clock on 9/11, the spike in the magnetic fields around the Earth really went high and stayed sustained with all that outpouring of emotion. When the towers were hit, it took about 15 minutes, they figure, for all of the emotional energy of the people involved to go around the globe and to make that kind of a jump in the magnetic fields, which is really, when you sit and think about it, it's fascinating. And the Global Coherence Initiative, which is another society that I gave you the website and some information about them. They're a 501c3 nonprofit. That they have these little counters that are planted around the Earth in different places, and when large groups of people meditate or something like that, they affect the environment around them. So they've taken studies where they've done, let's all meditate at such and such a time, and then they realize the crime rate in that particular area and what goes down for that particular period of time. So it's really very fascinating, the Global Coherence Initiative, which is another thing you might want to look on the internet about. Because it's no accident that the Global Coherence Initiative is being developed only now in the first years of the 21st century. For it is now at the end of our great world age, now at the end of time, according to the Mayans, that experts tell us that we are facing the greatest number of and greatest magnitude of challenges that we have met in the last 5,125 years of recorded human history. It makes perfect sense that now we could find a way to meet those challenges. Now we're finding that some of those challenges actually carry a potential to forever end life as we know it on Earth. It is precisely the same time we're discovering that we are born with a power to harmonize our bodies with the life-sustaining fields of the Earth in such a way that we can alleviate the potential of the greatest suffering created by those very challenges. The irony is that the way to do so is through the silent, non-verbal language of the human heart, precisely the ways that have been instructed in most of our ancient and cherished spiritual traditions. The Maya viewed our emergence into post-2012 world as the beginning of a new cycle of history, complete with all the opportunities described in this program and more. From these perspectives, December 21st, 2012 becomes a powerful window for our collective emergence into the greatest potential. The possibilities for a global emergence of a new era of peace and cooperation bring to mind the ancient accounts of the Garden of Eden, the place that once held all the possibility of our greatest joys and heartfelt desires. If we're to believe the calendars, the myths, the prophecies, it's just such a potential that awaits us following 2012. We could create a second Eden that picks up where the first one left off. Biblical correlations do suggest, in fact, that the last time Eden appeared on earth was actually around 5,000 years ago, at the end of the last great world age. During that time, Earth's inhabitants had everything they needed to live in balance with the earth, to enjoy vital, healthy, and prolonged lives. As the choices of our post-Eden ancestors planted the seeds, events for everything that would unfold in the cycle that followed, they set into motion the patterns that define the world today. Some patterns, such as forgiveness and peace, serve as powerful reminders of what is possible in our lives today. In my opinion, attitude of gratitude holds a vast amount of energy and healing capacity. What I'd like to do now is a small little exercise. It's called the 9-breath method of global healing. And I've learned it from my Qigong instructor, and it's a breathing method. What we're going to do is I'm going to count to 3, and we're going to blow out all of our breath, like empty our lungs, and then we're going to inhale back 9 times. And then on the 9th breath, we're going to hold it at the top. We're going to let a little bit out, and we're going to hold it, and I'm going to talk about our hearts and our minds, and then we're going to slowly, very, very slowly let the air out, and the dust in front of us isn't even going to move. That's how slow we're going to let the air out. It's going to be so peaceful, just letting this air out. And then we're going to do that a couple more times. And once we'll do one with sublimation, which is holding with no air, very little air in our lungs, which is basically letting the air all out except for a little bit, and then holding. And I'm going to talk you through this, and it's going to be very good and very energizing. If you're feeling any lightheaded or anything like that, just don't breathe as strong. Just breathe very lightly, like instead of, just. And we're going to sit at the top of the front third of our chair, so our spine is straight, if you can. Because it's good to keep our head level, because we're going to get the energy moving through our body. I'm a rebirther, and this is basically a form of Kriya Yoga, which is mentioned in the autobiography of yoga. If you ever read that book, where it's a connected breathing process, and it's getting the energy moving. So, if you would, just shut your, and then I'd like you to have your women left hand over right over your navel, and men right hand over left. And I asked my instructor why, and he said they've done it that way in for years and years and years in Qigong and in all those martial arts. It's just women have the left hand on top and men right hand on top. And put your hand over your navel. And if you would, just close your eyes. And I'm going to count to 3. And on 3, we're going to blow all the air out, and then we're going to inhale forward and back. with a slight rocking motion forward and back. Okay? All right, close your eyes. 1, 2, 3. Blow all your air out. And inhale back. Here's number 9. Hold it. Gently let a little out and just hold your breath. Just no effort. Just hold your breath slightly. Think with your mind and heart to send love and energy to every man, woman, and child on earth. See the earth as it looks from outer space. Send all the love to all the people and plants. Just hold it. There's no rush. You're sustained. Feel the feeling of peace and one inside. Now, slowly, when you have to, just slowly let the air out. And don't let, not even the dust in front of your face move. That's how slow we're going to let the air out. And you're just going to rest there a second. And we're going to do 9 more breaths. This time we're going to do it with sublimation. That's to say, holding with almost no air in and the exhale. Same intentions, the earth and sending love and healing to the whole planet. Ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Blow it all out. And inhale back. And number 9, hold a few seconds and let it all out. Keep about at 95% out, keep about 5% air. Just relax and count your heartbeats in your solar plexus area behind your navel. Just see the earth as it looks from outer space and send the love to all the people and plants. And just hold it. We are sustained. There's no rush. And when you need to breathe, you're going to breathe. Take a deep breath in, and you're going to have that energy up your back and over your head and into your eyebrow area. And you're going to see the earth there and connect to everybody. So when you need to breathe, and feel that air going up your spine, over the top of your head, into your eyebrow center. And see the earth there, our big, beautiful blue planet, our home. And then slowly let the air out, just like you did before, through pursed lips, just very quietly. And see all the love going to the earth and all the people on the earth. And we're going to do 1 more 9 breath. And we're going to do the same thing with sublimation. And the intention this time is going to be natural, grateful for life itself. It's going to be gratitude, thankful for all that is and everything that we have been given, all the treasures and all the abundance. Just simple gratitude for it all. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Blow it all out. And inhale back. And number 9. And hold it for a second and let it all out. Keep about 5%. Hold it, feel the abundant chi and oxygen moving through your body, energy coming to you from the true source. Even when we have nothing, we have it all. True source, we are grateful for all of the abundance you have given us. When you can't hold, take a simple, strong, deep breath and draw that blessing up your back and over your head and into your eyebrow center. Up and see the blessing and see the earth and the people and the blessing. Give thanks, thanking the Creator for all that we have. Give love and thanks and trust back to true source that is timeless, spaceless, nameless. As we are all one, all is one, we are truly blessed. Start each day clear and end each day in peace. Thank you, and so it is. Namaste. And if you ever decide you want to do this practice a little bit, if you felt a little energy, what they in the Qigong Center where I do the 9 breath practices, I do it in progressions of 9. So, but since we're just a little group here, and we also do it in a circle where you got hands holding together around in the circle, you feel the energy going through. But you do it in progressive 9s. In other words, you would do 9 breaths, and then you would go through that whole process. And the next time, instead of 9 consecutive breaths, you would do 18. And then you would do 27, and then 36. And then you would start the process on sublimation, going through the same procedure of 9, 18, 27, and 36. And if you do that, you'd be amazed at the amount of energy that you're going to start feeling in your body, and all that chi moving and getting you going. And it's very, it's very, very healthy for your blood cells to keep your body young and active. Anyways, I'm open to questions. I'll open the floor if anybody has any questions. I'd be happy to answer them, and if I don't know the answer, I'd be more than happy to go on the internet or someplace and look it up and get back with you with an answer. Is there any questions? Anybody?
Yes, will we start to see that once 2012 does come, that some things will start to ease up with worldly things, or will that be like a slow progression?
Like I said during this speech, and this is based on Greg's material, so this is, I'm basing this on what I learned in that program, but it seems like he made mention that our universe is over here from like 1980 to 2016. So since we are a magnetic force field, everything in the world is magnetic. I mean, even around us, we have a magnetic field, and the Earth is a magnetic field. At the core, the poles are everything is held together by this energy. And if we're here closest to this, you would expect to have some disruption in the Earth field. As it moves away again, you would probably expect things to go back into some kind of a cycle that it was before.
But that won't be for a while then.
Well, according to them, they're saying that this zone that we've been in since 1980 is ending around 2016. That's not that far away. So it's really a matter of the Earth's magnetic fields reacting to this huge magnetic black hole in the middle of the Milky Way. Yes?
How do you think the magnetic field will affect our technology?
I think that's the biggest concern.
So
That I do have done a little bit of research on that, and I do know a couple people that I deal with that have some friends in the government in high places, if you want to call it that. And that's one thing that they are really concerned about, because last time, allegedly, this came about, there wasn't all the cell phones and the satellites and all that kind of stuff. So solar flares that are coming off the Earth, they can see out there, and they have an anticipation when some of these things might be hitting our atmosphere. And when they hit our atmosphere, of course, they're going to affect some of these magnetic gizmos, such as cell phones and that kind of thing. So I think there's more of a concern about that than there is the Earth flipping itself over and becoming, you know, I mean, the reason that motivated me to even look into this and give this speech to the Theosophical Society was I was at a lecture there, I think it was in January, and this gentleman came down from Orlando, and he was talking about the red letters, and he was talking about if we didn't all pack up our bags and move up past this longitude up in Alaska, that we were all doomed. That we were going to be all underwater, and because the Earth was going to do a flip, and the only safe place was on the other side of this latitude line up past Alaska. And I said, you know, I think that people that are out there spreading that kind of fear, and even the media, you know, if any of you saw that movie where they had these big waves crashing over the top of the Himalayan and the Tibetan mountains, you know, and everybody was fighting to get on those couple big huge ships that they created, you know. I mean, I think it just sends panic into people, and then, you know, like, instead of focusing on what's positive and focusing on love and some kind of positive, good energy and anticipating that, because when you get together with a group, just like the Bible says, when you're together in Jesus' name, if you're Christian, but if you follow any other religions, they have the same type of beliefs, that if you get together in a mode of prayer, meditation, and that kind of stuff, you have a tendency to affect that around you. And if you walked up to somebody and, like, they were sitting there and they were, like, horribly angry, I mean, you know, whatever happened, somebody just kicked their dog or something and they're really upset, you're going to feel that anger coming off that person, you know. And so it's just like fear is the same type of a energy that gets sucked in. People get pulled into that, and love and joy and happiness does not sell newspapers or media, so, and movies, you know. They're just, you know, unfortunately we like to look at horrible things, and that's, I don't know, the nature of man, I guess, you know, part of our lesson here on the earth. In my opinion, it's easier to focus on stuff that's not so positive, because you go, I want to fix it, you know.
Did you ever try going a day without watching the news or the paper?
Oh, I don't watch the news. I mean, the only news I ever catch right now is a few minutes on Good Morning America while I'm getting ready in the morning. And that's not that much. You know, that's just in case I want to catch something that, you know, something major happened in the world, and, like, I'm sitting there going, what? There's a hurricane coming? Oh, really? I didn't know that. You know, okay. You know, so I catch the weather a little bit, but no, I don't. I can't take it anymore. It's just too much. It makes me feel crummy. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the photon belt?
No, I have not. What is that?
It's been explained to me that that is the different kind of energy that we are going to be going into come the great shift, and that we will change into light body. But I really want to learn more about that, if need be.
It's a possibility. You know, we haven't been here 26,000 years, right? So this one lady in the lecture that I did on Sunday, she said, I don't know what exactly book or philosophy she was reading, but she was talking about the energy coming out of this core was going to suck suck us off the planet, us off the planet basically, and we were going to change our structure. And
Does she mean that's a portal, perhaps?
Yes.
Okay.
And I said, I don't know that either. I don't know. I mean, I'm not. If we turn to light beings, hey, then if we're ready to be a light being, I guess we'll be a light being. It's just, I don't know. And I do know that we create our reality, and that the more what you focus on expands in your life. I do know that. And if you are focusing on your heart and on love and on expanding peace in your own life, that's probably what will happen when anything, whatever happens, no matter what happens in your life, you're going to be a more productive, happier person than a person that's constantly in the pity potty, oh, poor me, It's just, it's been my experience at least. If I want to feel sorry for myself, then I don't feel too good. If I go and I help someone else, I feel better about myself and other people. Yes?
Does he address extraterrestrial or intergalactic beings or any?
No, Greg is very scientific, and he marries science with spirituality of the ancient traditions. So if he personally does any of that, I don't know. It's just really amazing when you sit and think about these ancient Mayans with these stone. I mean, I can understand. Let's just for a minute assume they had computers and they had the modern gadgets that we have today. Let's just assume that. And they came from outer space, who knows what. But let's just assume that. They probably wouldn't last through all the time. So they would probably have to, if they wanted to leave a record, do it in stone and do it with pictures. Because obviously they don't know what's going to be here on the earth later. But stone is very, very clear. And Egypt, and India, and Cambodia, all of these temples and these pyramids and all these kind of things, when you start looking at all the connection between all those things, and even where they're located on the earth now, they've actually drawn like maps, and they've got exact measurements between this temple in Cambodia and the one in Egypt and the one here. And I mean, I was watching a couple programs regarding that, and those, I think it's in South America, those layouts in the ground where you got the animals that you can only see that from outer space looking down. I mean, but he doesn't go into that, so he's totally going with the magnetic energy of the field and how and the global initiative that I gave you the website for is very fascinating when it comes to looking at energy and how energy works and how we as people here, because if we all focus on disaster. I mean, I was in Hawaii when I was becoming a rebirther, and a hurricane was heading for the island, and you could see in the sky, the air, like wind, and the clouds were like moving like really, really fast, and the kahunas, the religious men, they were in attendance with our in our seminar, and what they did, they were going into these prayers and this chanting that they did in ancient Hawaiian, and I swear to God, the earth felt like it stood still, and the clouds in the sky were just like there, and they were like nothing was moving. And then all of a sudden it was like they started moving off in a different direction, and that did not hit. And it was a dead-on aim for Maui at the time where I was at. And I said, my God, that's pretty interesting. So I really believe that if enough of us have enough positive energy, whatever this is, you know, we could probably change it. And I think, when you look at the growing experience that we've gone through with all these natural disasters, you know, we are opening our hands to other people around the world, and that we're realizing, if nothing else, that our home here is very small, and we're all here in this tiny little blue ball, you know, together, and we, you know, we all have to take care of it together. We can't blow it up, you know. And I think humankind has come to that realization. You know, so if we're without cell phones for a week or so, you know, that's not going to be such a big deal. You know?
What about those ATMs?
Well, like I said, you know, any natural disaster, you know, you have to do what you got to do. You have to do what you got to do, you know. And like my friends are telling me that that's the only serious threat that they see right now is the solar flares coming off the sun are more intense than they have been, and that, you know, it takes so long for it to get here and all this other stuff, that there's a strong possibility that it may interfere with, but I don't think they think the earth is going to burn up. You know, they're not looking at it that way. I mean, when you look at some of the scientific knowledge that they have in these earth cores, where even though the water levels on the earth have raised and fallen before, the only thing that really big was the dinosaurs and their extinction. But we know a lot more than the cavemen did.
Would you say that human beings are electromagnetic?
Yes.
Not only women then, some writers or thinkers, they said women are magnetic and men are electrical. That's why we have the attraction.
I think we're both the same, but
The woman is electromagnetic, but she has less electricity. The male have more electricity. That's why we attract each other. And then too, you have space. The planet and the earth and everything is in space.
Mhm.
So then, since everything comes from space and we are made up of the same material, don't you think that we are being too fearful?
Oh, that's what I said. And I think that personally, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I really have no control over what's going to happen on a global type level. If we're going to be beamed off to another planet, or if we're going to just go through a minor, major Earth shifts, but minor in regards to our physical body, it's like, how attached are you to your physical body? I mean, that's what really the bottom line comes down to. If you're really into a spiritual practice and you really identify with your spiritual self, you're probably not as going to be as fearful as a person that is like, this is me, I don't care what you say, this is me. And there's no spirit, there's no intuition, there's nothing like that out
Because
there in the world.
the Rosicrucian and other mystical groups, they have taught for a long time, this 26, 12 years, and they figure that this period, we coming in what they call the Aquarian age.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a time of love and peace instead of disaster.
Well, that's why I said, I think all of these kind of things that we're going through is forcing mankind into a situation where they realize it's better to be working cooperation with one another as opposed to, this is mine, and I'm not going to share. And I think we're seeing more and more of that, where mankind is opening up its heart and being more loving and sharing towards their brother, because they know that we're all in this together. But yeah, all of the ancient traditions, this is not something that, like I said, it's amazing that some of these ancient traditions knew about all this stuff. When you sit and think about it, because we today are, with our computers and our calculators, like, oh yeah, that's true, that's right. They're verifying all that stuff.
There's something else. Most of the teaching come from the Atlantean, and they did have computer and so on at the time. In other words, their civilization parallel today. According to this.
Yeah, according to some law, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anything? Well, I really am very, very grateful that you had me come and talk. I'm really was excited, and I hope you all got something from it. And I really, really, truly hope, if you're not an internet bug, that if you got a friend or a relative that is, that you would at least, not necessarily look at Greg's time code calculator, but at least look into the Global Initiative, and specifically the Institute of Heart Math, and because they've got some wonderful meditations with the heart and with the feeling, like the one that we opened with, and that really, in my opinion, open your heart and just allow more energy to come into it. Just feels so good in the body.
Do you have another handout?
Oh yeah, there's a couple more here, yeah.